The arrival, the observation deck of the Galactic Council's Grand Sanctum had witnessed countless historic moments over its 3 million years of operation. Species from every corner of the known galaxy had passed through its crystalline archways, some arriving in vessels of living metal, others teleporting in bursts of quantum light, a few even manifesting from pure thought given temporary form. But never had the deck been this crowded. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species pressed against the transparent viewing walls, their various appendages, sensors, and consciousness fields all oriented toward the docking bay below. The murmur of translated voices filled the air like a swarm of insects, clicking, humming, resonating through frequencies both audible and not. "They're late," observed Council Member Thexnor, their crystalline form refracting the light of 3 nearby suns into prismatic patterns, by 17 of their minutes, already displaying the chaos we were warned about. "Or testing us," countered Velsha, a being of flowing mercury who held one of the Council's oldest seats. I reviewed their first contact protocols. Humans have a concept they call fashionably late, a dominance display wrapped in false courtesy. Dominance? The voice belonged to Crix, whose species had evolved in the crushing gravity of a neutron star's orbit. They haven't even mastered their own star system's outer planets. What could they possibly? The conversation died. The human vessel had arrived. It wasn't the ship itself that caused the silence, though its design was admirably efficient, if painfully primitive by galactic standards. No. What froze the Council was the absolute lack of ceremony accompanying it. Every species before had announced themselves. The Vorash had transmitted a symphony composed over 3 centuries specifically for their arrival. The Kelthuri had painted the entire docking bay with bioluminescent messages of peace in 17 languages. Even the notoriously stoic Mindari had at least sent a formal greeting via quantum entanglement. The human ship simply docked. No fanfare. No broadcast. No message at all. The airlock cycled open with a mechanical hiss that seemed almost defiant in its mundanity. "Perhaps their communications array is damaged," suggested someone from the back of the observation deck. "Impossible," replied Chief Administrator Sorik, tentacles twitching with barely suppressed irritation. "We've been monitoring them for cycles. Their communication technology, while crude, functions perfectly well." 5 figures emerged from the ship. They were remarkably unremarkable, bipedal as expected from the xenobiology reports. Bilaterally symmetrical, carbon-based, they wore matching dark coverings that the cultural database identified as formal business. Attire, a concept unique to their species involving specific cloth arrangements to denote seriousness of intent, no exotic materials, no genetic enhancements visible to standard scans, no cybernetic augmentation beyond what appeared to be primitive optical correction devices on 2 of them. They looked exactly like what they were, a species barely a century into space travel, standing in a structure built by civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel before humanity's ancestors had discovered fire. The Council's welcoming committee, 20, beings representing the most powerful civilizations in known space, had arranged themselves in the traditional formation. At the center stood High Chancellor Mexis, whose people had founded the Council itself over 2 million years ago. "Humans of Earth," Mexis began, their voice resonating through the translation field that would render their words comprehensible to any sentient mind. "On behalf of 3,000 member civilizations spanning 12 galactic arms, we welcome you to the lead human, a female according to the briefing documents, with dark skin and close-cropped hair, held up one hand." Mexis stopped mid-sentence. In 3 million years of Council history, no one had interrupted the Chancellor's welcoming address. The 5 humans simply walked forward, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous chamber. They moved past the welcoming committee without a word, past the traditional offerings laid out by the hosting species, past the cultural exchange displays that had taken months to prepare. They reached the 5 seats that had been prepared for them, positioned deliberately at the lowest tier of the Council chamber, the traditional place for new members, and sat down. Then, they looked up at the thousands of assembled beings with expressions that the Council's best xenopsychologists would spend the next several hours trying to decode, and they said absolutely nothing. The silence stretched. 1 second, 5, 10, perhaps. Mexis tried again, their composure visibly cracking. You would like to introduce yourselves? Share your people's hopes for this partnership? The traditional, the same human who had raised her hand before did so again. But this time she didn't interrupt with words. She simply held up one finger. The meaning was unclear, but the gesture itself was unmistakable. Not yet. Then she folded her hands in her lap and returned to watching the council with eyes that seemed to miss nothing. The second human, a male with gray streaking his hair and a face lined with what the database identified as aging markers, pulled out a primitive datapad and began making notes. The third human, younger, adjusted those optical correction devices and scanned the entire chamber with a gaze so methodical, it felt like being inventoried. The fourth and fifth humans sat perfectly still, their faces completely neutral. Thexnor's crystalline form flickered with confusion. What are they doing? I don't know, admitted Velsha, and in those 4 words lay something the Galactic Council had not experienced in millennia. Genuine uncertainty. In the observation deck above, the thousands of watching delegates erupted into confused chatter. What was this? Arrogance? Ignorance? Some human cultural practice no one had anticipated. But down in the council chamber, High Chancellor Mexus felt something they hadn't experienced since their species had first encountered the concept of zero, the uncomfortable realization that there might be a variable in the equation they hadn't accounted for. The humans continued to sit in silence, and for the first time in 3 million years, the Galactic Council had absolutely no idea what to do next. The unraveling. The emergency session was called within the hour. It was unprecedented. The Council hadn't convened an emergency deliberation for a new member species in over 40,000 years, not since the Kixtal had arrived riding massive void beasts and accidentally eaten 3 diplomatic envoys before anyone realized. It was their way of asking for directions to the refreshments. But at least the Kixtal had communicated. 17 hours, Counselor. Thexnor's form pulsed an agitated crimson. 17 hours they've been sitting there. Not a single word, not even a glance at the refreshment synthesizers. They don't eat? Asked junior member Plix, whose species had only joined the council 3 centuries prior, and still carried the enthusiasm of newcomers. They eat, snapped Velsha, mercury form roiling. Scans confirm their biological functions are normal. They've shifted position exactly 3 times each, likely to prevent circulatory issues in their primitive vascular systems. The male with gray coloring consumed something from a small container at hour 9, but they haven't said anything. Perhaps they're mute, suggested Counselor Vortum, whose people communicated primarily through pheromones. Some species lack verbal. We've monitored their transmissions for cycles, interrupted Chief Administrator Sorik, tentacles slapping the podium in frustration. They never stop talking. Their entire planetary network is saturated with constant communication. They have over 7,000 distinct languages. They create entertainment media where beings do nothing but talk for hours. And now, in the most important moment of their species' history, they choose this. High Chancellor Mexus raised a hand for silence. The chamber quieted, though the tension remained thick enough to distort the translation field. Has anyone attempted direct contact? Mexus asked calmly, though their biosignature betrayed elevated stress hormones. 47 species have approached them, reported Sorik. The humans acknowledged each approach with a nod, a vertical head gesture indicating recognition. But when addressed, they simply gestured to their seats and returned to watching. Watching what exactly? Everything. Sorik pulled up a holographic display showing the humans' eye-tracking patterns. The female designated leader has cataloged every member of the council. Her scan pattern suggests military reconnaissance training. The male with the data device has been recording every motion, every word spoken in the chamber. The younger one with the optical aids has been analyzing architectural features, we believe. He's mapping emergency exits and structural vulnerabilities. A collective unease rippled through the chamber. And the other 2, Mexus asked quietly. They haven't moved at all. Their heart rates are abnormally low. Breathing patterns suggest trained meditation techniques, but their pupils, Sorik hesitated. They're dilated, hyper-aware. We believe they're what humans call bodyguards. They brought warriors to a diplomatic summit? Thexnor's crystalline form crackled with indignation. Or they're prepared for this to become non-diplomatic, noted Velshaw darkly. The question is why. The chamber erupted into debate, clearly an insult to the entire, possibly a cultural misunderstanding. Should never have been invited. Perhaps we should remove them. Enough! Maxis's voice cut through the chaos like a fusion blade. The Chancellor stood, and 3 million years of accumulated authority radiated from their form. We are the Galactic Council. We have negotiated peace between species who communicate through quantum suicide. We have brokered trade agreements with beings who experience time backwards. We have established diplomatic relations with a hive mind that considers individuality a form of mental illness. Maxis looked around the chamber. Are we truly confounded by simple silence? With respect, Chancellor, Velshaw said slowly, it's not simple silence. I've been reviewing human cultural databases. They have a saying, actions speak louder than words. Another, silence is golden. And perhaps most relevant, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. The implications hung in the air. Enemy, Plick squeaked. But they're the ones seeking membership. We hold all the power here. We control access to faster-than-light technology, galactic trade networks, defensive alliances. Without us, they're trapped in their single system with their primitive chemical rockets. What possible leverage could they— That's exactly what worries me, Velshaw interrupted. They're acting like they have leverage. Like they're evaluating us instead of the other way around. Councillor Crick shifted their massive bulk. Ridiculous. They're an infant species. They've been to their own moon, barely. They have no significant technology, no military capability that would threaten even our oldest vessels. No resources we couldn't obtain elsewhere. They should be grateful we're even— Then why aren't they? The question came from Councillor Yixla, whose species had thrived through paranoia evolved over millions of years avoiding predators. Think about it. Every species before them, every single one, has approached this council with either awe or ambition, pride or desperation. But the humans, they sit there like they're interviewing us for a position, finished Maxis quietly. The silence that followed was profound. That's absurd, Thexnor protested, but their color had shifted to uncertain amber. We should simply demand they speak. We're the Galactic Council. We don't know. Maxis's tone was final. We wait. If this is a test, we will not fail it. If it's a strategy, we will not reveal our hand. The humans want silence, we'll give them silence. Resume normal council operations. Let them watch. Let them listen. And let's see what they're actually waiting for. And if they never speak, asked Zorik, then we'll learn more from their continued silence than we would from 1,000 speeches. Maxis replied, after all, is that not what they're doing to us? Back in the council chamber, the 5 humans sat unchanged. But if anyone had been watching, closely, truly closely, they might have noticed the slight curl at the corner of the lead human's mouth, not quite a smile, just the suggestion that everything was proceeding exactly as planned.